Hey, can you hear me? I just wanted to ask, how many times a day do you check your phone? Because I feel like I'm on my phone all the time, and according to my screen time data, I'm actually correct. On average, I pick up my phone about 150 times a day, for an average of 5 hours and 10 minutes per day. Now obviously, when I saw those numbers, I immediately started doing the math. 150 times a day, if I'm awake for 16 of those 24 hours, then that works out to be 9.38 times an hour. That's once every 6.5 minutes. And if I keep this up, I'll have spent 78.5 full days entirely absorbed by my phone this year. But is that normal, or am I some kind of crazy phone addicted outlier? I started doing some research and it turns out it kind of is normal. According to a study concluded in early 2022, I found that on average we pick up our phones 344 times per day, and that's once every 4 minutes. 71% of us check our phones within minutes of waking up, and another 70% of us check our phones within 5 minutes of receiving a notification. On average, we spend 2 hours and 54 minutes on our phones each and every day. Okay, so I'm picking up my phone less than the average person, but I'm using it more per time. So how do I fix this? How do I improve my time using my phone? How do I make it more worthwhile?
These are all the notebooks, but they don't have any small enough. I'm looking for something that can fit in my pocket. This is the smallest one they have. Okay, they didn't have it here. I'm gonna have to buy it somewhere else.
So here's the deal. Every time I get the urge to look into this little black box, instead, I'm going to look into this little black book, and I'm gonna write and try to use this more than I use this. So for example, if I have an idea and I'm like, oh, I need to remind myself tomorrow morning that I need to do my taxes. Instead, this is a dumb example, but instead I'll write that in here. I'll say, okay, do your taxes. That's essentially the plan. I'm gonna try and replace my phone with that journal for a week and see what happens. So basically my plan was, every time that I got the urge to use my phone for something, instead of using my phone, I would take my phone out of my pocket, film myself, and write in my notebook instead. So the first couple days were kind of weird. I was kind of getting used to the whole idea of writing in a notebook. It's a very strange feeling to be writing your own thoughts down and knowing that no one else is gonna read them. But after the first day, I started kind of getting used to the idea of it, and I honestly started to kind of enjoy it.
Alright, we're like 3 days down into this journaling challenge now, and I've filled this many pages of this book already in 3 days. Like I've written a bunch of stuff. I'm not an artist, like a drawing artist, I would say, but I've been like drawing stuff in the notebook, and I've been making maps and stuff for my goals, and I've been writing journal entries and to-do lists and stuff. Like I've really been using this and putting it through its paces, and up to this point, I feel like it has been really, really productive for me. I don't really have anything to add at the moment. What I've been doing is every time I get the urge to go on my phone, I've just been putting it on like film record mode and then putting it down instead and then filming myself writing in the journal. So then I still have like something to do, but it's like just rewiring that process in my brain to go from, instead of picking up my phone and scrolling through Instagram, to write in the journal, write my thoughts, write a to-do list, make a plan for a movie, something like that. It's been really interesting so far. Keen to see where I'm at in a couple days.
Something really interesting that I noticed immediately throughout this challenge was how much better my retention was. When I was writing things down, I could remember them far better than when I was putting them in lists on my phone. And then I started digging into that more, as I always do. I found a research article that compared paper notebooks with mobile devices and how your brain activation differs during memory retrieval. And I quote from their conclusion in this article, "The significant superiority in both accuracy and activations for the note group suggested that the use of a paper notebook promoted the acquisition of rich encoding information and/or spatial information of real papers, and that this information could be utilized as effective retrieval clues, leading to higher activations in these specific regions." I'm not gonna lie to you, I had to Google a lot of what that meant, but basically what they're saying is that scientifically writing things down is better for brain take in information better and can recall information better at a later date. Basically it's like putting something in a filing cabinet instead of just throwing it on your desk. So here's where things started kind of getting a bit weird. Because I was getting so much more comfortable with the idea of journaling, the whole connection between not picking up my phone and journaling started to disappear in my mind. I was no longer needing that incentive of when I feel the need to pick up my phone, now is the time to journal. I was just journaling of my own incentive. And so from this point forward, I stopped filming myself. This is the last update that I did for the whole challenge.
Alright, we're on day 5 of this whole journal challenge journey thing, whatever you want to call it. And it has been really good for me. Mainly because I am currently in the process of moving into my new place here in the Netherlands. And it has been incredibly helpful to write things like to-do lists and measurements for furniture. Like, this is what I've used it for today, is just measurements. And then, like, the other day I wrote this whole to-buy list of things that I needed to buy for the new place, and I had this whole like to-do list to sort out, and so I've been using it all for things like that. And I think what's been really helpful for me in this process is realizing that like my journal doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I feel like I used to get so stuck in my head of like it has to be done a certain way and it has to all look pretty and be formatted, but honestly, like, it's just a pad of paper in my pocket that I can use for literally anything that I want. And that's been what's been really helpful for me. And it's been like 5 days and I've already gone through like this much of the notebook, and give or take I'm going through about 7 pages a day, which I think this is a 250 page notebook if I'm guessing that. I'm totally pulling that out of my ass right now, but point being, if I keep going at this rate, I will have filled this notebook very quickly, which is proof that it has been very helpful for me. That is my update for today, and I'll update you in another 2 days when we hit a week. Well, it is a month since I filmed that last section, and honestly my life just got really hectic. You may have noticed, but I am filming in my new place now, and that's what happened over the past month. I moved houses and I officially have my own place here in the Netherlands, and that's such a massive step. And it also meant that I didn't have the brain space to keep filming and keep making movies, which kind of sucked, but now I'm just slowly but surely coming back into it now a month later, and that means finishing this movie. In regards to the journal, I have it right here, and it's about half full. I don't use it as much as I did in those first couple of days, but I still use it fairly regularly for quick maths, grocery lists, little drawings. It's kind of just become something that I keep in my pocket at all times. I always have it with me, regardless of where I'm going, because I never know when I'm gonna need to really quickly write something down or write a list or have a brainwave for a movie that I can make in the future. So ultimately this has been a really good thing for me, and I think in the end it ended up being really the perfect time for something like this in my life, because with the move I wrote so many lists of things that I needed to buy, things that I needed to organize, things like insurance, cooking supplies, all of those little things that like amount to a bigger picture but that you don't really think about in the moment. So it ended up being really useful for me in that aspect, and because I wasn't making these movies, I didn't really have a creative outlet, so being able to write in my journal every single day also ended up becoming a creative outlet of sorts, in a similar way to doing the daily vlog used to. And now for the real question, did I end up lowering my screen time with this challenge? And yes, kind of, but not really by any meaningful amount. I lowered my screen time by 6%, but what I will say is that I feel like the time that I spend on my phone now is a lot more valuable than when it was a month ago when I started this challenge. I'm a lot more intentional about the way that I use my time when I pull my phone out. I'm not just mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, it's specifically to be doing things. I mean, yeah, it kind of helped, but mostly it just ended up being a really useful tool for me in my day-to-day life, and for that reason, I'm gonna continue using it going forward. I'll be uploading a few high-resolution screenshots and scans of some of my journal pages on my Patreon, so if you're nosy and you wanna go check those out, head to the link in the description. Otherwise, I'm gonna leave it there, and I'll see you in the next movie.